Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm standing outside on my patio today. It's hot as crap out here. I don't know why I thought this was a good idea. But it's all good. I'm going to start cooking out in a minute, so I figure it's quiet out here. So why not go ahead and film since it's, the children are still out for the summer and it's a little loud in the house. But anyway, this video is going to be a sew with me video, and it's going to be Simplicity 8128, which is this really cute pattern. If you have my number, then it's 0916. We're going to be doing view B right here. It's also A and B. I think B is a little bit shorter. So yeah, this is what we're going to be sewing. The pieces that you will need will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And you need to apply interfacings to piece 3 and 4. This is a really great top. I think a confident beginner should be able to successfully make it. It's not any zippers or buttons or anything like that, but you do have a facing. You do have darts, and you do have the 2 ties in the back. So that's why I think a confident beginner would be successful with it. So if you're up for it, go ahead and give it a try. Cut your pattern pieces out. Go ahead and interface your 2 pieces, and we can start sewing. Alright, so I'm done cooking outside, so now I can start sewing. First thing for the top is to put stay stitching in. And so make sure that you have your pattern guide close by, because it has a diagram of how they want you to put the stay stitching in. Now you can either go from the one shoulder to the center and then take your presser foot up, move your needle, and go from the other shoulder to the center, or you can even start in the center and go out to the shoulders. What you don't want to do is go from shoulder to shoulder without stopping, because that can mess up the neckline, and we don't want that to happen. So go ahead and put your stay stitching in, and when you're done, it should look something like this. Just a row of stay stitching. I went from shoulder to center, then I went from the other shoulder to the center. So go ahead and put yours in. Next up, we want to make our darts. I have mine pinned, so I'm going to go from the widest point down to the tip. So you go ahead and do the same thing. Make sure that you don't roll over your pins. You take your time and you just follow a line. It's always best to kind of draw the lines from your dots. That way you can just trace and follow your lines. If not, you're kind of eyeballing it, which isn't, the best thing to do. So I recommend drawing some lines. That way you can kind of just make sure you're going from point to point with no problem. Don't backstitch when you get to the end. We always want to tie a knot at the end of our darts. That way we don't have a pucker there. So go ahead and put your knots in, and we can move on to the back pieces, which you need to put stay stitching around those just like you did the front. So go ahead and look at your diagram, see how they want you to put your stay stitching in, and go ahead and do that for both of your back pieces. Now that we have everything to stay stitch, we can go ahead and we can put our 2 back pieces together. Make sure you line up your notches. As you can see, those triangles, yeah, my mom cut those out. I do not do my notches like that. But go ahead and pin it from the bottom up to that large circle. You're not going to pin it straight from the bottom. You're not going to sew from the bottom to the top. You're going to stop at the large circle. So I hope you transferred your dots when you were cutting out your pattern. So go ahead and start from the bottom up. Don't start from the large circle. Start from the bottom and go up to the large circle. And it should look something like that. I want you to go ahead and finish off your seams. For this video, I'm not going to do that, but I normally would. Go ahead and open it up, press it out, finish your seams. Next up, we're going to sew the side seams together on the front and the back pieces. Sew it right sides together. Go ahead and pin your front to your back at the sides, and then we're going to go ahead and sew those down. So this is what I'm doing right here. I'm just sewing down my front to my back at the side pieces. I'm sorry, at the sides, not at the side pieces. All right, and so when you're all done, you should have it all sewn together. You can go ahead and finish that off. If you have a serger, pick and shears, however you want to do it, go ahead and serge it and give it a press as well. It's always good to press. All right, next up, we're gonna sew the shoulder seams together. So front to back, right sides together, sew your shoulder pieces together. I told y'all this is a really quick and simple top. I really do think a confident beginner would be able to breeze through it with no problem. Make sure that you backstitch at the beginning and the end. Go ahead and open out, press, and finish off your seams. Next up, we need to apply interfacing to our neck facing pieces. So go ahead and apply your inner facings to the wrong side. You want to make sure that you're ironing on the glue side, which is the bumpy side, to the wrong side of your fabric piece. So once it's all fused, you have one piece. And then next up, you want to find your notches, like I am, on both of your front and back facing pieces. I'm going to pin those together so that we can sew those. So go ahead and put a pin in this one here, and then once you have it pinned, go ahead and pin the other back piece to the front, find your notch, and then we're just going to sew those down. Line up my notches. Y'all see those triangles? That was all my mama. That's old school right there. And so go ahead and sew those around. Sew those across. I'm going to open those out and give those a press as well. And once you press it, you want to go ahead and finish off the curved edge of your facing. You can do that with a 1/4 stitch from the edge, 1/4 of an inch, or you can do it with some zigzag stitching or serger. I did mine with the serger here. Alright, so now we can go ahead and attach that facing to the top. So you just want to put it right sides facing. Line up your side seams and go ahead and pin it to the top of your top. Use as many pins as you need, and we're going to be sewing it down on a 5/8 seam allowance. So we're just going to start from one of the back openings and we're just going to go all the way around. I do recommend that you go slow and take your time because you are going around a curve. You don't want anything to shift and get out of place. So just go slow, take your time, and remove your pins when you come to them. When you're all done, it should look something like this. What you want to do next is go ahead and grab some scissors. I'm going to use my little trimming scissors and I'm going to trim off the excess as well as put notches in it to remove more of the excess. Take out some of the bulk. So you go ahead and do that as well. Next up, we want to do an understitching on the facing, and an understitching is sewing really close to that seam line, catching the seam allowance under it and the facing. You don't want to sew the shirt, we're just sewing the seam allowance and the facing together, really close to the seam. So once again, take your time and go ahead and sew that down. Be sure to make sure that you are catching the seam allowance under it and that the shirt is out of the way. So next you want to go back to the back opening and you're going to fold up 1/4 of an inch. So you're going to fold up 1/4 of an inch and then you're going to do a squaring off. I'm going to show you in just a second. First I'm folding up 1/4 of an inch and then I'm going to pin those down. So you can go ahead and fold them, pin them down, and press them if you like. So right now I have my 4th pin, and then you're going to square it at that opening, and then you're going to continue up the other side. Okay, so you can go ahead and do yours the same way. Go ahead and sew down one side. And I'm sewing really close to the edge of that seam. I'm not sewing in the middle. I'm sewing right on that opening of it. And then I'm going to turn it, square it off, and then continue up the other side. When you're done, it should look something like this. You can see where I squared it off down there, and I just took it up the other side. So you go ahead and do yours in the same way. Next, we want to start working on our ties. So the ties have one side that kind of has a point on it. You want to fold that part because that's the part we're going to sew, but the other part at the bottom, we need to leave that side open so that we can flip it inside out. So go ahead and start at the top with the point and sew it down and sew across and then sew all the way down, leaving that part right there open. So you go ahead and do that for both of the ties. Make sure that you remove your pins as you go. You don't want to sew over those. And just take it all the way down. Remember, do not close off the bottom of it because we have to flip the right side out. Go ahead and trim off the excess as I'm doing here. Once it's all trimmed, go ahead and flip it right side out and give it a press. Now we can go ahead and attach it to our top. So on the back of your top, you should have some dots. It's always good to transfer it, so I hope you transferred those dots. They're important right now. You need to line it up so that the raw edges are facing that opening. So with the raw edges facing the opening, you're just going to sew that down, put some back stitching in it. And then you're going to take the tie and you're going to pull it toward the opening now. So you're going to pull it over that what you just sewed. You're going to pull it over it, and then you're going to put a stitch right down it. So it's like you're stitching it down with the raw edges facing first. Then you're going to pull the tie over that seam, over that stitch, and then you're going to sew it down to secure it and hold the tie down. So go ahead and do that like I'm doing here. Just go back and forth a couple times on it just to secure it. And then you will have your tie secured. You go ahead and do that for the other side as well. Next up for the top is the hem. And so I'm going to do view A hem. You can do view B if you want. It's just a bigger hem. Mine is just a narrow hem. And so I'm going to fold under my raw edge, and then I'm just going to fold it over again. I think for view B, you're going to fold up your hem, and then you're going to press under 1/4 of an inch, just giving it a thicker, a bigger hem, making it more of a crop top. But for me, this is all I wanted. So go ahead and sew it around, finishing off your hem. And then the last thing to do is to finish our armhole. So go ahead and grab your armhole bands with right sides together. You're going to line up those notches right there. And we're just going to sew those across. Once you have it sewn, go ahead and open it up and give it a press. Go ahead and do it for both of them. And then you're going to fold, once you have it pressed, you're going to fold it in half lengthwise. So go ahead and do it like that and give that a press so we can attach it to our armhole. Now with the arm band on the outside of the shirt. So you don't want it on the inside, you want it on the outside, almost kind of like binding tape. So you're going to put it on the outside of your shirt, and you're going to pin it all around because we're going to sew it down. So once you have it all pinned, we can go ahead then and start sewing it. So just sew it all the way around on both armholes. Remember, take your time, remove your pins, and you want to make sure that you have all the layers together. You don't want to only be sewing like 2 layers, and then once you're done, you think you're all good, but you missed a layer, so now you have a hole. So just take your time and then trim off the excess. And then now we have to do understitching, just like we did with the facing at the top. We're going to understitch this, catching only the facing and the seam allowance, not the shirt. Go ahead and do your understitching all the way around your top. Do it for both armholes soon. And so once you have it all done, all that's left to do is to flip that inside and sew it down. That's all that's left to do with your top. So go ahead and flip it in like I'm doing here on both sides, and then go ahead and stitch it close to the inner edge of the facing, and your top's all complete. It's pretty easy, right? I really do hope that if you are a confident beginner that you was able to get through your top with no problem. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe below. Let me know if you made it, and I'll talk to you all in the next video. Blessings, everyone. Bye.